Two brothers. One gave from love, the other gave out of duty. Only one was accepted, and it ended in blood. Once upon a time, long ago when the world was just beginning, there lived two brothers named Cain and Abel. Cain, the eldest, was a hard-working man who dedicated himself to farming the land. He spent his days planting seeds, caring for the plants, and harvesting the fruits of his labor. Meanwhile, his younger brother Abel was a shepherd. He was in charge of tending the flocks, feeding them, and making sure they were healthy and protected. Both lived near their parents, learning about God's love and how to care for his creation. Every day Cain and Abel worked hard at their tasks. Cain toiled under the sun, turning the soil, planting, and watering his crops. Although the work was hard, he felt pride in seeing his plants grow strong, thanks to his dedication. Abel, on the other hand, spent long hours in the field, guiding his sheep to greener pastures and protecting them from wolves and other dangers. Abel loved his animals and gave them names, treating each sheep with care and affection. Despite their daily efforts, there was something different in the hearts of the two brothers. Abel worked with joy, always remembering that everything he did was to please God. Every time he looked at his sheep, he thanked God for his goodness and provision. However, Cain did not feel the same peace in his heart. Although he worked hard, he often felt frustrated and upset. He struggled to understand why he had to offer God the best of his harvest. Why isn't it enough to just do my work? He thought. The two brothers lived peacefully with each other, but while Abel enjoyed a close relationship with God, Cain wrestled with his own feelings of dissatisfaction. Something began to grow in his heart, and he didn't know it yet, but soon his emotions would lead him to make decisions that would change everything. One day, the time came to offer sacrifices to God. Both brothers brought their offerings, Cain with the fruits of his harvest, and Abel with the best lamb from his flock. They stood before the altar, waiting to see God's reaction. Then something surprising happened. God looked favorably on Abel's offering, accepting it with joy. However, he did not show the same favor toward Cain's offering. Cain stood still, feeling anger and rage grow within him. Why doesn't God accept my offering? Isn't my work as valuable as Abel's? He asked himself furiously. His face darkened, and his hands trembled with frustration. God saw what was happening in his heart, and spoke to him tenderly. Cain, why are you so angry? If you do what is right, you will be accepted. But be careful, for sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. But Cain's anger was too strong. Instead of listening to God, he let the resentment toward his brother grow more and more in his heart. He decided he couldn't stand the situation any longer, and planned something terrible. One day, Cain called his brother Abel out to the field. "Come, Abel, I want to show you something on my land," he said. Abel, always trusting and loving, followed his brother without suspecting what was about to happen. But in his heart, Cain had already made a dark decision. The pain and envy had completely blinded him, and when they were alone, Cain attacked Abel and killed him. After the terrible act, the field was left in an eerie silence. Cain, breathing heavily, looked around as if he couldn't believe what he had just done. The weight of his decision fell upon him, but instead of repenting, he tried to hide what had happened. He thought maybe no one would find out, but God, who sees everything, called to Cain. "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain, trying to hide his guilt, replied, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" But God already knew the truth, and said to him with sorrow, "Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." Cain's sin had been discovered, and now he had to face the consequences of his terrible action. God told him that because of his sin, he would be cursed upon the earth. The ground that had once yielded fruit for him would no longer respond in the same way. Cain would become a wanderer, roaming the earth without a permanent home. The punishment was severe, and Cain cried out in despair, "My punishment is too great to bear. Anyone who finds me will kill me." But even in the midst of his judgment, God showed mercy. He told Cain that no one would kill him, and placed a mark on him to protect him. Although Cain had committed a great sin, God did not abandon him completely. But Cain would have to live with the consequences of his act, separated from his family and from the land he had worked so hard. From that day on, Cain became a fugitive. He traveled from place to place, always remembering what he had done. He could no longer live with his family or enjoy the work of the land as before. The decision he made in a moment of rage and envy changed his life forever. Abel, the righteous one, had died, but his memory endured, and the example of his faith and obedience to God would be remembered for generations. Cain learned a bitter lesson. Sin and envy can destroy not only those around us, but also our own lives. God always sees the heart, and what truly matters is offering the best of ourselves with a humble and sincere spirit. Despite his mistake, God continued to show mercy, reminding us that even in our worst moments, he does not completely abandon us. The moral of Cain and Abel's story is clear. God values what is in our hearts more than the material things we can offer. Abel gave the best of himself with a heart full of gratitude, while Cain let envy and bitterness take over. We must learn to control our feelings before they lead us to do wrong. And above all, this story teaches us that God is just but also merciful. Even when we make mistakes, he is always willing to give us another chance if we repent and seek his forgiveness. In the beginning, God created the world in just 6 days. He made the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth and oceans, the plants, the animals, and finally, human beings. He called it all good. But humans were special because they could talk to God, love, and make choices. God made a beautiful garden for the first humans, Adam and Eve. They could eat from any tree, except one, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God warned them that eating from it would bring harm. But a cunning serpent, the smartest of all creatures God had made, deceived them into eating the fruit. When they ate it, everything changed. They realized they were naked and felt shame. Because they didn't listen, pain, sorrow, and death entered the world, and God expelled them from the garden. But he didn't leave them without hope. He made a promise. One day someone special would come to fix everything and bring them back to him. For many, many years, God's people waited for this promise. It was passed down through generations by heroes of the faith, like Noah, who built a massive boat to save his family and the animals from a great flood. Abraham, who left his home because he trusted in God's promise. Moses, who led God's people out of slavery in Egypt. And David, a young man who defeated a giant and became king. All these stories had something in common. They showed that God always keeps his promises and was planning something amazing. All the prophets who spoke God's messages talked about a coming Messiah, a king who would save everyone and whose kingdom would last forever. Many years later, a baby was born in a humble place, a stable where animals slept. That baby was Jesus, the one everyone had been waiting for, the hero promised long ago. From his first breath, it was clear he was special. Angels sang, shepherds visited, and wise men from far away brought gifts. Jesus grew up and became a man who did incredible things. He healed sick people just by touching them or saying a word. He made the blind see and even calmed storms. He told stories that made people think and feel differently about life. He showed love to everyone, even to those usually ignored or rejected. But not everyone was happy with Jesus. Some feared the change he represented. They didn't understand. He was the king promised by God and conspired against him. Jesus was betrayed by a friend, and although he had done nothing wrong, he was punished like a criminal. Jesus died on a cross, a terrible way to die. It seemed like hope had died with him. But 3 days later, something incredible happened. Jesus rose from the dead. This showed that not even death is more powerful than God's love. It was proof that Jesus truly was the one sent by God to save us and open the way back to heaven. Follow for more stories that go deeper than just words.